And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And welcome to the University of Logic, better known as Cristiano's Conservatory, correcting convoluted conversations. And welcome to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano. And we are pleased to be here tonight because there are many subjects that we want to discuss, and we encourage you to call our toll-free number, 855-866-1170. Should you have any questions, any complaints, or argue, or whatever it is, please give us a call.
Or just give you a hard time.
Oh, just give me a... Why not? Everyone else does.
Yeah.
And at 15 minutes after the hour, we were going to have as our guest J. Richard Duke, who's a adjunct professor at the Thomas Jefferson School of Law, as well as an attorney, and he's a monetarist. He's a advocate of the Austrian School of Economics, and we're going to be discussing our economic foibles and our.
We have those?
We have all those things.
Really?
Yeah, little ones and big ones, right? And also we're going to talk about our currency. You know, it's interesting his take on that. Yeah, he's fascinating blogs on our currency and all the related articles.
Good questions. People call in on that. I mean,
they should.
And
we encourage you to call. You know, folks, I'm not an advocate of those who say, well, you know, come May 15th, this is going to happen to the market or the currency. You know, I blow all that off. I don't listen to it. I don't want to know. But I am an advocate of forecasting, because what has transpired and will give us an indication of where we are going. Now, you know, they say history repeats itself, and they have all those silly sayings, but really, history sort of rhymes. You know, if you know, if there are indicators there, you know what's going to eventually happen. And I give this example, but there are people who are absolutely blind to what is going on. They do not want to understand. As I've said before, you know, we have teachers in our country that are very well educated, and they're smart people. Unfortunately, they are very ignorant. And in fact, when you discuss economic situations or history with teachers, they usually get angry and they defend what they have been taught to believe and obey the rule of law that has been given down to them to preach to their children. And that really hacks me off. But I am an advocate of trending, and of course my favorite trends forecaster is my Goomba, Gerald Celente. In fact, Gerald Celente actually lived on Hone Avenue in the Bronx, and I lived there for 2 months. I got to give him a call. I got to tell him, I lived on your block. You didn't even know it, you know. But he's up in New York State now. But he's a trends forecaster. He doesn't say, this is what's going to happen there. He said, look at what is occurring, and you can see which road we are going down. And people are deathly afraid to do that. In fact, do you know, this is a fact, that even when the Jews were in the cattle cars to Auschwitz and Dachau, do you know what they were saying to themselves? Everything will be okay. Don't worry about it. Just don't say anything. Everything will be okay. Literally to the point when the ovens were turned on, everything will be okay. And we sound the same way. We look back at what happened to all those people, and not only Jews, but anybody who disagreed with the fascist regime went to the ovens, right? And the same thing, that 20 million people were sacrificed in the Soviet Union at the time, in Russia. You know, by Stalin.
Say very little about that.
Oh, yeah.
We say very little.
3 times the number of people were killed by
they were our
Stalin.
Allies.
Because of course. And here's my point. Here's my point. In that, in our history books, the Russians were the good guys and the Germans were the bad guys, when in fact they were both bad guys. And the only way we could have effectively invaded and toppled Hitler is to have the concurrent operations on the Eastern Front of the Russians, although we knew how bad they were. My point is that we don't say that. See, we don't tell our students that. We say, oh, good guys, bad guys. Never happened that way. Right? My point being is that today, if you ask people about the current situation where we are today, you know what they would say? Oh, you have a bad attitude. Everything will be okay. I mean, everything. No, seriously.
That's true. That's right.
Oh, but I'm hopeful. I have hope. You don't. I'm a positive person. You're a negative person. And this idiocy that pervades our culture has been brought down by us because we have been led to believe, to be, one, obedient to the word within our schools and our school system, and our school system tells us exactly how not to think.
So I got a question for you, Joe.
Yeah.
Why have they eliminated world history as required learning from the Oklahoma school curriculum? I mean,
You're
what do you
kidding,
think?
they did?
Yeah, I mean, you can get it. You can get it.
You
You can get it if it's as an elective,
Oh, you're kidding me.
right? But it's no longer required.
Is that in high school or just in junior
High school.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So
Oh, boy. Now we're completely stupid. We're only half stupid.
Well,
before.
why would you need world history when you have the evening news? When you have MSNBC,
You gotta have CNN,
and
you have everything.
CNN.
Well, there you go.
Why would
I
you
mean,
need it? Right.
why would you need it to vote? Well, on someone who, one of the most important things about a president is his foreign affairs. So,
if you know nothing about world history
or foreign affairs,
Yeah. But let me continue my train of thought because our
please. We don't
guest
want
will
you
be here in
to
a
lose
minute.
that, yeah.
All right. I am a disciple of Gerald Salente. I believe in trends. Now, look at our employment situation. That's a classic, right? I have the Wall Street Journal here.
You had a stack of
Yeah,
them.
look at this. Here it is. Job growth gathers strength. Now, there could not be a bigger lie.
yeah.
It's like me telling my
Where'd they get
wife,
those
I've
statistics?
never looked at another woman. I mean, really, never. I mean, as soon as I see someone with long hair and I assume it's fair, I close my eyes, I mean, you couldn't lie more than that, all right? And yet, here we have an unemployment rate down to 6.3% or 6.3%, I think it is, or 6.2, whatever it is, right? And what they don't mention is the adjustment to the birth-death model, right, which adjusted the figure, number one. And secondly, down in the paragraph number 9 or something like that, they mentioned the fact that nearly 1 million people dropped out of the workforce. More people dropped out of the workforce in 1 month. Than ever since 1978 when they first started gathering the statistics. Ever. This is the biggest month. So here's my takeaway. Based on the government figures and the way they calculated things, if in fact everyone decided to quit their job, become a bum, not look for work, drop out of the workforce, and you had 0 people employed, right? According to the government, you'd have 100% unemployment. 0% unemployment, right? The economy would be doing absolutely fantastic. I mean, this is the insanity that we go to. This is the insanity that we go into. Now, and then I'm constantly reading articles. I get the Wall Street Journal for free. That's why I take it. I don't particularly appreciate it.
They're having to give it away now, huh?
Oh, no, they gave it to me,
Subscription to it, yeah.
Look at our schools in Oklahoma. Since in the past, I think 15 years, right? The rate of the increase in the number of students in the Oklahoma school system increased by 6%, only 6% in the past 15 years, right? Right. Guess what the number of administrators? How much that is? It's increased.
200%.
49%.
Wow.
So you see trends. You see where we have a country that's being overburdened, just like Russia was, just like every other country that had literally died. You overburdened with bureaucracy and rules and regulation. Last year, 70,000 pages of proposed and enacted legislation in 2013. 70,000 pages, all right? Take that over 20 years, you're talking about 3.5 million pages of regulations. First of all, 70,000 in 1 year. Who read 70,000 pages, and who could ever understand even 50 of those pages?
We got to pass it first before we read it.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll know what's in it.
Good. And then once they pass it, no one reads it because no one understands it and no one gives a damn. They go on to the next piece of legislation. Folks, we have a problem in this country that we're going downhill. Today I went to the...
Joe, you're negative.
I'm a
Joe,
very
you're
negative.
being very negative.
Very optimistic, Joe.
Could you
I
put a
have no
positive
hope.
Could you
spin
put a
on this
positive
for us?
spin
I
on
have
that
no
for
hope.
us?
But I never look at other women.
Oh, yeah. Well, at least you're not a liar.
Yeah.
Your nose is growing, Joe.
Yeah. I said, like I was at Starbucks the other day, and a girl came in, and she had these really tight slacks on and the whole bit, and real French, long blonde. I immediately closed my eyes.
Yeah,
I
right.
did. I turned
comes
around.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Joe, you got another point to make because I got something in my
All right,
call.
no, shut up. Let me. I'm not
All right.
finished.
Get,
all right?
get your point. I got this. I got
I
to tell
forgot
you.
my point.
Good.
I even forgot my point. I forgot my
Oh,
point.
good. I
You got
messed
me
him
off.
up. Now I can say, no,
Right,
it goes right along with what you're saying, Joe. There's a problem. And what we're going to do, and you and I talked about it this afternoon, we're going to post alternative news sources so people can get informed. Because they're not getting informed if they're watching
Right, okay.
Fox
What are
or
they?
watching
I remember my
CNN.
point. Make it
We're going to
quick.
put it on your website.
Okay.
They can get it on the website. And did you make your point? I wanted to share a few on the air until they got there, but you go ahead and do your point.
All right. Well, I go to the doggy doctor today, and it's a specialist, a guy he travels around the United States because he's such a specialist in surgery and mouth surgery and whatever, and he's a doggy guy, a real doctor, a doggy doctor. Anyway, and he made mention of something about how business. I said, well, how is business? He says, not good. I said, well, how is business generally in the doggy doctor business? He says, not good. I said, let me ask you a question. How do you know that? I mean, how do you know? Are you saying that? He says, no, because I travel around the United States. I'm asked to speak at all the conventions because of my specialty. And he said, what I hear, even when I don't ask, what I hear from everyone, and he said, from Seattle to New York, right across the country, is how poor things are. People don't have the money to spend on their animals as they used to. And if you put that together, with the number of people who are not working out of the labor force, et cetera, you're talking, 62% participation rate? And of the 62%, one half of those or more are having difficulty making ends meet on a month-to-month basis. This does not make for a good economy. Let's break for a second. We have a soft break. We'll be right back for our guest. If everyone's still with me after me ranting the way I did, we have on the line our guest, J. Richard Duke from Birmingham, Alabama. He's the principal of Duke Law Firm. He's also an adjunct professor at the Thomas Jefferson School of Law. And he's our guest, and he's a monetarist. He's just like me, a monetarist. Richard, are you on the line?
I am on the line. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for calling in, giving me a break. I hope you can rant for me for a while.
I hope I can.
Well, tell me, how wrong am I? How are things going? Am I on the wrong track, or is our currency getting better, or is it getting worse? Or what's happening out there?
It's getting better for the elite, but it's destroying the middle class and especially the poor.
Okay, so all I have to do is reclassify myself as the elite, and I'd be doing better, right?
Yeah, you would love it.
Okay, good. Call me an elitist now.
You must not be elitist, then. I can tell that now.
Well, tell me, why is that happening then? Why is it happening?
Well, it's happening because of the Federal Reserve ability to create fiat money and the banking system, fiat fractional reserve credit. And so this credit primarily is going to the elitist companies through the elite Wall Street banks. And so they're shifting money. It's not really money. I call it currency. It's just it's computer entry nowadays, computer entry credit and so forth going to these elitists. And it's not based on what consumers want or anything, or based on any kind of savings that companies can borrow from. It's just based on fiat. Let it be done as fiat, and then they pay for it by fiat money.
Now, if I was a Reaganite, how I would respond to that and I don't believe this, obviously, but, I can understand it, but, this is a ploy. But, if I was a Reagan, I would say, well, that's trickle-down economics. If the elitists are making all this money, they eventually will build factories, and in building factories, there would be production. With the production, there would be the increase in employment, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Why isn't that happening?
It's not happening because of primarily the fiat fractional reserve credit. I hope I can explain to your audience before we get off what fractional reserve credit is. It's very evil to me. Some people say I get out of hand by calling it evil, but I still think it's evil, so I will stick with my word. But,
okay, fine.
The credit is going to making malinvestments. They're not based on borrowing from real savings, where people's time preference show that they are spending less now in savings, and that produces savings in which a higher order of goods producers can borrow from. But we don't have that. We have a production going on just based on the fact that there's low interest rates, and it's really not consumer driven. They build these products and so forth, and it finally hits the shelf, and it's not being based on consumers. It's based on the fact that the interest rates are low, and they can produce and produce and produce, and they get to say, the government does, what the great employment, give the great employment figures, because they're not great now anyway, but they get to give better employment figures than is true, because a lot of people are working in industries that are going to collapse. Because when you have malinvestments, it's credit-driven, and credit-driven malinvestments always result in a boom and then a bust. Always have through history.
Right.
Well, so it's pseudo jobs.
Right. Well, if it was a legitimate economic system, if it was not crony capitalism but free market capitalism, you would have people saving their money, banks lending the money to companies. Companies would be taking that and producing products that they assume that the market desires. Right? Then they would hire people to produce that. Now, that's not exactly happening. What are they producing? What are they taking this phony money, this excess money, this fiat currency, and they're using it, but what are they building? They got to be building or using it somehow, or are they just taking this money and buying derivatives or something? What are they doing?
Yeah, a lot of it is financial, very similar to Enron, but even on a larger scale. So the financial industry is blowing and going now, and the companies and the banks, of course, they are loaning a little more money now, but they're not haven't loaned very much. But a lot of it is building maybe bigger buildings and so forth, because they have more employment. It's like in the real estate in 2008, everything related to real estate was blowing and going. Architects, roofing. Yard people, glass makers, they were just, the employment figures in those areas were great. And the malinvestments now are even worse. But that real estate collapsed, and it's going to collapse again, whatever they're investing in, these companies.
Well, if we have a collapse, we've already had a collapse of the housing market. We've had a collapse of the financial market, actually, with Lehman Brothers and the rest of those criminals. Right, and they say real estate, those are the two biggies. We had the .com crash, which was basically a stock market crash. Yeah, all right. What is the next one in your opinion?
Well, the next one, maybe it's more than one. It's the credit card debt as well as student loan debt. Those are two big ones. I could see those having. Those are big malinvestments. We have schools where the professors are making lots of money. They love this fiat, and the students are borrowing to the hilt. They get out of school and they can't get jobs.
Right.
They have trouble paying back those loans. That's one I see the big one, but it could just be overall credit card debt, because it's now going back up again. The credit card debt is increasing.
Right. Well, is the credit card debt increasing because people are having less and less money every month? Now, I'm not one of those. I'm old fashioned. I'm of the old school where I paid off all my debts. I don't own a new car. I have no car payments, no house payments. kids are gone, they're married and all that. And, in other words, I'm of the old school. I'm still living 1955, type thing.
Well, Paul Krugman would say you're unpatriotic.
Absolutely. Yes, for this country, you bet, and I'm damn proud of it. I'll tell you that. But
Paul
you're right.
Krugman thinks you should expatriate.
That's right. Like, I was one of those guys.
Don't push him. He might.
Yeah, the week after Christmas, I would go to the bank, and what would I do? Is I would open up a Christmas club, so I would have $10 a month. I would have $120 to spend on the following Christmas. I mean, but these are the things that, I still do things like that. I still save every month, so I have the money when it's needed, and I'm still in this old school. But I think I'm the only person in the world doing this. But
Well, that's that old school comes from the Bible.
yeah,
So I guess you have to choose between Paul Krugman and the Bible. So I guess you chose right.
yeah. What really? But you're absolutely right. I'm glad you brought that up, because no matter what religion you are, I don't care if it's the Jewish, if the Hebrew religion, if it's the Muhammad, the Islamic, Christian, it makes no difference. They all talk in this scripture about debt. And in
it's
fact,
evil.
It's evil, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, in Islam, charging interest on debt is subject to some sort of fine.
Well,
I think
they call
death
it
or something,
usury in the Old Testament.
Yeah, you couldn't charge even a penny, because when you gave money to someone else, you were helping your fellow man. But where is all these religious people out there? And they all seem to be. Everyone seems to be so religious today, and yet they seem to be so a-religious when it comes to their behavior. When it comes in monetary matters, am I off the page, or is there some credence to that?
You hit a hot button with me, because I believe many churches, synagogues, whatever they may be, are living within their own glass houses, and they're not paying attention to what's going on around the world. Look up a verse sometime. Look what the Greek word is when Jesus says, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." That word for truth, I didn't write it down, but if you look it up in any of the commentaries and so forth, that word truth means knowing what is going on around you. If you know what is going on around you, that's the truth. Then because you know what's going on around you, it will it'll save you. That's what he said.
Set you free.
How many churches and pastors know that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I never hear that. I never hear that anymore.
I think they zero in on the truth being maybe when they think about it. Oh, the truth is what we're reading in the Bible here, but it actually does. It means something beyond that. It means know what's going on around you. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Except I didn't know that.
That'll preach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can send you later when I get off the word for it. It's in the commentary.
Yeah, the actual Greek word.
And I've checked it from several sources too, not just one, to make sure that was correct.
Well, there's Joe. I think I told you about it, and our guests may find this interesting too. I did some video for a builder here, and I saw this big area out there north of our town that they just building and building and building. I mean, there's bulldozers making roads and, houses going up like crazy. And I told one of my other clients about it, who actually is a vendor for builders. And he said, yeah, they're using, he said, they're building houses for rental. They've got big investment groups that put the money in there. Yeah. And these houses are all, you'd think they were like, 40 years ago when my wife and I looked out for our first house, it was like, we looked at it to buy it.
That's right. Yeah.
And in one of those kinds of
That's
neighborhoods.
because there's so many foreclosures, people need to rent.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't have a credit or something.
Yeah.
Now, is that one of these, what did you call it, fiat or what was it?
Yeah, I know the Wall Street banks have gotten involved and also in buying up real estate, and they're renting it also.
Well, it's better than that derivative crap, I guess, if it's real estate.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is because our guest is talking about, I guess the cruelty of debt, and the illegitimacy of debt and the wrongness of debt. And yet, if you look at the Federal Reserve gets its money three ways: and through taxation, which is right, which is wrong, right? Or through borrowed money, which is wrong, and through inflation, which is really wrong. And that's what our whole system is built on. And yet people have faith in that system. I think that's kind of ironic that they have a faith in a system that there is no faith.
Yeah, there's no faith. When they came to Joseph in the Bible, they said, "Let us bring you our souls and our possessions. Why should we starve?" So, what's really happening here? I could take the liberty to tell people that are listening what is really occurring around the world. Let's talk about the United States. Is the Hegelian, Hegelian dialectic. Yeah. And if I could just give a definition, that won't make any sense, but I'll give an example. It's
okay.
A, that's a person or people, thesis, versus B, that's other people, antithesis, equals C, synthesis. Synthesis, I have trouble saying that word. Here's what it is, and I'll give an example. A, my idea of freedom conflicts with B, which is your idea of freedom. And then C, Hegel said, neither of us can be free until everyone agrees to be a slave. So what they're doing right now is they're saying that the problem we have is too much sovereign debt. Well, that's true. That's I'm A. B is the reaction. It will be there's the economic collapse. I actually believe I'm actually on B too. But the solution will be the great consolidation, which will be sold as an economic restructuring. That goes a lot along with the Bible, too.
Richard, I have to cut you off now. Sure. We have to go to our hard break. Would you hold on, please, and wait for our hard break? And don't go away, because we'll be back in a couple of minutes, okay?
Okay.
Just hold on there. Thank you. Let's go, folks. Don't go away. Folks, we have J. Richard Duke on the line with us as our guest. He is the adjunct professor at the Thomas Jefferson School of Law and also an attorney. And he's written extensively, taking the Austrian School of Economics approach to our government and financial situation. And Richard, you had a posting on your blog. Let's see, where is it? I wrote it down somewhere. It was fiat money and the Federal Reserve. Would you like to walk through that with us?
How it operates, the fiat money and the Federal Reserve?
Yeah.
Yes, well, I'll go through the U.S. Treasury borrowing money. When the U.S. Treasury borrows money, they issue an IOU, a Treasury note. Treasury security is called different things depending on the maturity date. Chinese banks, Chinese companies, Federal Reserve, their central bank, and other countries can loan money to U.S. Treasury. But also, the Federal Reserve itself can buy Treasury notes from the U.S. Treasury. And so let's say that the U.S. Treasury is borrowing $10 million. It's usually more than that, but I just use a figure that some people can understand and I can understand. $10 million. Where does the Federal Reserve get the money to buy that? Someone at the Federal Reserve, the central bank, puts his or her fingers on the computer and enters it into the bank account of the U.S. Treasury. What? That's fiat money.
Right.
It's just out of thin air.
Right.
It's totally counterfeit, but it's given legal tender status under the law.
Right.
That doesn't make it moral. It just means it's legal.
Right.
Now, the fractional reserve system is even worse. Let's say that let's say that banks have a 10% reserve requirement. That means they cannot loan out but 90% of their money, and so they have to keep 10% in reserve.
Right.
So I take $100 to the bank, and I put it in my checking account. I didn't put it in my savings account. I put it in the demand deposit checking account. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that that's the bank's money. It's not our money.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and
Really?
other countries have ruled the same thing.
Wow.
So it's the bank's money, even in a checking account. They own that money, not you. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't understand a lot of things. But now, $100, that bank can loan out $90. So, Joe, you go in and borrow $90, and you put your $90 in the bank, and you put it in the checking account, and now that bank can loan out 90% of your $90. So Mr. X goes in and borrows whatever, the 90% of $90 is, and it goes on and on and on and on. And when you get through with it, on my $100, I believe you can loan out $500 on a 10%. It's either 500 or 1,000. I'm terrible in math, but anyway,
right.
You see,
okay.
It's just fiat credit based on a $100 deposit.
Well, this has been going on since, 1913 or whenever?
Yeah, 1913 they passed it, and then in 1914 it
Right.
went into effect. The same year the income tax went in, the same year that the state legislatures quit voting for the senators and the people voted.
Right,
Oh,
that's
that
right.
was a
Same
big
time. Yeah.
mistake,
Well,
yeah.
why has it taken then? Right now, then it's 101 years. Why? How could it have persisted? Such an evil system, and I understand what you're saying because I have a photocopy machine at home that's 4-color, and I can take a $50 bill and it'd come out perfect. I mean, perfectly. I mean, I can do that all
Do
day
both
long,
sides,
and I
yeah,
make
both
all the
sides
money I
printing is
want.
one of
Right?
the- yeah.
It's the same. It's really basically it's the same thing. How has it persisted this long, and where are we today relative to where we were 101 years ago?
It's persisted because the people have faith in the dollar. And as long as you have faith in something, if you could convince the paper that 8.5 by 11 legal pad paper was valid, they would accept it as money.
Right.
So as long as the people are sheep, they're little sheep following whatever they're told by
Right.
the 6 companies that own the news media in the United States. They're just sheeple following what they're told. But in answer to your question, I cannot answer your question. I cannot believe they've been able to kick the can down the road this long. I just really don't believe it either.
Doesn't the money supply just keep on increasing and increasing, ballooning and ballooning and ballooning with nothing backing it up? And it gets to a point where it's so watered down. Isn't then our money supply grow every year by virtue of the fact that every time we borrow something, we have to pay it back with interest? Don't we need more money? Or is my math wrong?
No, they're having to borrow more and more just to keep paying the interest payments.
All right, now, is that the concern that the Federal Reserve has now, in that we do not see the likelihood of an increase in the interest rate? Because if the interest rate went back to a normal 4.5% to 6.5%, the federal government just could not borrow enough money to pay the interest. Am I off on that?
No, you're not. That's exactly right. Interest rates would go up, and it would collapse the economy. That's what scares them.
So we're just stuck. We're stuck in the mud.
Then we're stuck at near 0% interest, and that the banks are borrowing money for nothing. Well, what is the ramifications of a prolonged 0% interest rate?
Malinvestments around the world and just continuous borrowing because interest rates are so low. Another example people hopefully can understand, let's just take a Chinese bank.
Right.
It doesn't have to be a bank, but let's say it loans the U.S. Treasury $100 million. So now it takes back a Treasury note from the IOU from the Treasury. That bank takes that $100
Million.
100 million or something. I should say 10 million. So we can understand it. 100 million is probably more true, but 10 million.
Right.
Takes that $10 million to the central bank in China, and China gives yuan, Chinese currency, to that bank. Let's say it's still 10 million. I don't know the exchange rate at the moment, but this just is 10 million yuan.
Right.
Now, under the fractional reserve system, they can loan out, just like in America, they can loan out to their company in China, and they sell products back to us. That's what's going on.
Right. Well, where do you see this going, and how do you see this thing eventually crumbling? Or if it is going to crumble,
Joe,
how do you see it? How do you see it? How do you see it? I'm looking for something to grasp onto. I understand what you're saying, and we've been saying this now for a while. But how do you see it unraveling? Is there a trigger point? Is there a point of no return, or will be there, or whatever?
Well, it's starting because more are getting off dollars. Some countries are no longer selling. A lot of people don't understand that all oil in the past has been sold and paid for in dollars.
Right.
Some are getting off of that, and so when they start dumping dollars, they being central banks around the world, when they start dumping dollars, that will take us down. China and several other countries, if they started dumping dollars Monday morning, we would have a shock in the United States as to what was going on Monday morning at 8 o'clock.
Why would that make any difference? I'm here in the United States, so they don't take dollars for oil. So what? Big deal. I mean, how does that affect me?
It would drive the value. There's the fiat value of the dollars down so much that it would be approaching going down and becoming worthless because they were getting rid of it. And when you dump things, you don't get the prices.
It takes the demand away.
Yes.
So they'd be dumping their dollars,
Yeah.
flooding the market with paper dollars
that nobody wants.
And of course, people would not want to buy it because somebody else is dumping it, right? Am I correct? Is that
That's right. That's what happened in real estate. There was no market for it.
Okay.
No market for real estate. There will be no market for dollars.
Yeah. Now, most people would say, Mr. Duke, I understand what you're saying, but aren't you kind of negative? But how come you don't have a positive attitude? You go through all, and I'm sure you've heard this before, of saying that, oh yeah, that's theoretically possible, but the Federal Reserve, Janet, wouldn't let that happen. They would do something in order to correct the situation and to prop up the U.S. dollar, because we've been here before. We'll overcome once again, and I'm sure you've heard that 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
What is your response to that?
My response is I would be a lot more positive if people like you would listen to this and understand. But because you won't listen and understand, and you'd rather be a sheeple, it really makes me negative about the situation. But I would say to them, it's different now because the world's involved. The world owns dollars, just like when they sell oil, there's dollars over there. When our military is overseas, they're paid in dollars. They're paid in dollars, and they have to go exchange those dollars in Germany to get marks. So whatever in Afghanistan, in order to spend the money in Afghanistan, they're paid in dollars. They have to go to and exchange them to spend them in Afghanistan. So there's dollars all over the world, and many reasons other than just the military and oil.
Well, we've seen the BRIC nations, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, now are on an exchange where they're buying and selling amongst each other, bypassing the petrodollar, and that represents 43% of the world's population. And you'd think you would have seen a blip on the radar. No one's mentioning it. No one says anything. It's like the crazy ant in the closet. No one talks about it.
In the living room.
No one talks about the elephant in the living room. And then just 3 weeks ago, Russia made an announcement that it will be selling all of its oil in Russian rubles, and that accounts for $1 trillion worth of oil exchange per year. And of course, it was. You can find that article, but not a ripple. How come not a ripple?
Well, I look back on the same thing. I don't remember who said it. It caused it to blow up, but Enron was going along fine until somebody exposed it to the public listened to. One of these days, somebody that the public's going to listen to, and they're not any of the people telling the truth right now, somebody is going to realize, hey, boys, we're in trouble, and the public's going to listen to it, and that's when they're not going to have faith in the dollar.
Okay, we have some pointed questions for you, but we have a real quick break. Don't go away. You'll stay with us, okay? Thank you, Richard. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have on the line with us as our guest J. Richard Duke. He's the adjunct professor of law at the Thomas Jefferson School of Law, and also he's the principal of Duke Law Firm. And he has a resume that is so long it would probably take us more than an hour just to repeat. But we're pleased to have him on the program. We're discussing the Federal Reserve fiat currency and the state of our monetary affairs. Richard, I was at a meeting last Tuesday. It's called a think tank, and sometimes I think it's the non-thinking tank, but it's a think tank, if you will, of businessmen. And this subject came up. And a gentleman there, who will go unnamed at this point because he's probably listening in.
He's a friend.
But he made a point, and I don't. It sounded valid, but it didn't sound valid. And maybe you can help me unravel it and how I would respond to him next time I see him. He said, you don't have to worry about the U.S. dollar. And anything backing it up. You don't need gold, you don't need silver, because the federal government owns 90% of the land, west of the Mississippi or wherever it is, and out west. And he says that land is worth trillions and trillions of dollars. So really our currency is backed up by our natural resources.
Real estate.
That sounded right. It sort of sounded right, and I sat there, and I didn't. No one responded, because. And the more I thought about it, I think first of all, the nutty I think it became, I think it was a ridiculous comment. But I wanted to hear, what would your response have been, and what is your response to that?
Well, if I was in China and they couldn't pay back my whatever it is right now, 12 trillion or whatever it is, I don't keep up day to day what it is. I would say, okay, we'll take your land, and because you can't. We're not taking your worthless dollars. We'll take your land and we can start renting to your people. We're probably better lessors than you are too. That's what I would do if I was in China.
Well, would not in this scenario would not then, for example, China own, let's say, Nevada, and I'll just make that up. I mean, they own Nevada now because they, we owe them trillions, and the government owns most of the land in Nevada, and I'm making that up again, So they bought the state of Nevada, but that wouldn't be part of the United States anymore. Now that would be part of the Republic of China.
Unless they let it still remain a part of the United States. The person who made that apparently has not read History of Rome, because it was a fascist system just like we have. And they said the same thing in Rome, that this can never happen to Rome. Rome was the most powerful nation in the world by far.
Right.
And it's happened to Rome. It's happened to Spain. It happened to other countries. We have turned our back on God. We're greatly in this country, not all of us, of course. And that's got to be factored in also.
No morals.
Yeah. Well, it should not something that backs up the dollar be something that you're willing to give up? For example, if it's backed by gold or silver or copper, whatever it is. In fact, I was listening to Dr. Paul Craig Roberts the other day, and he was mentioning that he had some relics of the Roman Empire, and the coins that he had were actually made out of lead. And it replaced copper coins. And I did not know that Rome had not only gold coins, silver coins, but they also had copper coins. Of course, copper had some value. Of course, it was a less valuable coin.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and that's right. And yet, we had copper pennies, and now they're zinc pennies, but we still have the copper nickel, which is actually worth more than a copper nickel because it's 25% nickel, which is about 3 times the cost of copper. And anyways, another fascinating.
Yeah.
Anyway, but should it be something that you are capable of giving up? For example, we would not be willing to give up the state of Nevada to a foreign country. Say, okay, yeah, we owe you this money. Take the state. Now it's the 49 states of the United States.
Yeah, I assume. I don't know this, that the Federal Reserve has been buying up gold, so they would have the gold if push came to shove. Of course, Germany demanded some of their gold back, and we're giving it back very slowly. I don't know what that means, that we're giving it back to them very slowly. Do they not have it? I don't know.
Yeah, well, see, the thing is, no one seems to know. We do hear of the approximate tonnage of, and it's not that pounds, it's actually tonnage of gold being purchased by Russia, by China, and by India, as well as other countries, and Italy is also, believe it or not. But you never, ever hear of the approximate tonnage purchased by the United States.
No, you don't.
Well, and the silence is deafening.
And
Richard, you're going to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say that, again, it's just people don't realize what's going on, and they don't pay attention.
Well, Richard, the gold that we owned before the Federal Reserve came into existence, the United States people, the government held of the gold, the national wealth. Where is that gold? What is it doing now? Did we have to give it to the Federal Reserve or transfer it to them when we set up the Federal Reserve, or do we owed it to them and they collected on it a long time ago?
Yeah, I'm sure that. Of course, under Roosevelt, they took up gold, and I think a lot of people complied with that based on historical reports. And I'm sure that gold ended up in the hands of the central bank, some of the 12 regional banks, maybe the New York Bank, but I know it ended up in the hands of the Federal Reserve. But what they've done with it since then, we don't know, because they don't tell us anything.
But this is, whenever we look back at history and we look at what people have done and we read about it, we go, what were those people thinking? Didn't they see what was going on? I mean, you can take any part of history, any part of any history book, no matter what country it's in, and you say, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, that happened, and you mean these people didn't know this? They knew it was happening. Why didn't they do anything? And we're doing the same thing. And by the way, we have someone on the line, Lloyd from Henrietta. Let's take a caller. Lloyd, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Lloyd, thank you for calling in Liberty Talk Radio on 1170 KFAQ. What is your question?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment. You know, I'm not for fiat currency at all, but a truly fiat currency would be an improvement over what we have, because what we have is money that's issued as a loan at interest. You know, the Continental dollar was script issued by the government in the time back in the 18th century, and Lincoln issued the greenbacks. Now, those could be returned back to the issuer and taken out of circulation. But the Federal Reserve note, because it's a loan at interest, you could pay those back repurchasing the bonds, and you would get rid of all of the money, but you would still, once there's no money left in the economy, not $1, you would still owe the interest. So it's even worse than a fiat currency.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually, the best word is fiat debt, because on the Federal Reserve note it says note. That's what he's talking about.
What do you see? We have about 3 minutes to go. Richard, what do you see? Give us your sort of projection, what your feel is as to what's going on and what people should do at this point in time who are listening to this program.
Austrians back off predicting when things are going to happen, so I'll go along with that. But I believe that, I'm in an international practice where people are transferring some money outside the United States and vice versa through trust and entities and so forth. And what I want to work with are asset managers, the ones I deal with are usually outside the United States, that they're focused on buying companies and also looking at financial statements the best they can, but focused on buying companies that produce things that are real, that people have to buy, whether you have deflation or inflation or depression or hyperinflation, whatever it may be. And I would say the same thing in the United States. Look for asset managers who are buying companies and things that are real, that people will have to buy no matter how bad the economy gets, either because it's going out of hand, hyperinflation, or because it's deflation.
All right. And would you be an advocate of people having a certain amount of gold or silver or copper or coins or something like that in their possession?
Yes, that's life insurance. They call life insurance, but it's really death insurance. It pays off when you die.
Right.
Gold is real life insurance. Or silver. Are things real?
You mean when the economy dies?
Yeah. You live. That's life insurance.
Well, aren't you going to wind up then? And Lloyd, I know you're still on the line, and stay there, please. But then, basically, if there would be a crash, there's only going to be a very, very small segment, maybe 3% of the population, that's going to have any wealth.
It could be that bad. I don't know. I can't project that, of course. Again.
But I mean, based on the people who have wealth. And I mean, wealth other than just credit card debt and riding around in a new car where they owe $40,000. I'm not talking about that wealth. I'm talking actual wealth.
Yes. Also, another factor to remember that wealth does not go away. It just shifts, and it's going to shift away from us, I'm afraid.
All right. We have about 40 minutes left. Lloyd, I'm sorry, we have no more time. Floyd, thank you very much for calling in. Appreciate that.
That's a good comment.
We have about 30 seconds. Richard, let me leave the last 30 seconds to you, and maybe you can give people information as to how they may reach you or read your commentary and whatever.
Okay. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama. My email address is richard@assetlaw.com, ASSETLAW.com. I have two blogs. The economic blog is assetlaw.wordpress, WORDPRESS.com. And I have another one is Duke Law Firm, one word, .wordpress.com. And I would recommend those who are interested in what I've had to say to look at MISES.org, O-R-G. And you've probably mentioned that before.
Right. Thank you so much, Richard, for being our guest. And we'd like to keep an open invitation to you sometime in the future if you'd like to come back.
Joe, I appreciate it very, very much. I appreciate your audience listening.
All right. Thank you so much, and good night.
Okay.
Night. Folks, you can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, you're either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, there is no middle ground.